think I'm finally figuring out how to work the Rumble Studio somewhat. Greetings. Welcome back to Blackburn News, where everything is connected. And anyways, I'm sorry that I keep, it's really quite frustrating, but I keep killing my stream on Rumble. I promise not to do that again today, or try not to do that. It's just very easy for me to mistake the Rumble. Sometimes what happens is I'll paste a link into the browser that I think I'm supposed to paste it into, and it'll end up being the Rumble browser. And the problem is that if I switch away from the Rumble browser, it kills the stream. And so the one good thing about StreamYard is that if I came back to the stream, it would still be going. But if I come back to the Rumble stream, it is gone. So I have to really, 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 really be careful not to do that. I promise to try and be really, really careful not to do that. But the reason why I wanted to continue this conversation from yesterday is because we were talking about it. I feel like it's an important one. And I know it might seem kind of weird that last week I was trying to explain that the more likely explanation for the hurricanes is global warming and not necessarily weather manipulation. And here I am talking about contrails. If you listen to the things that I say, what I'm saying is it's not either or, it's and. Most likely. Most things are never either or. Most things in life, are and. This and that. This can be true and that can be true. To what degree are either true? That's the way you need to look at things, or the way I try to look at things. I'm not telling you how to think. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was totally my fault. It wasn't YouTube or anybody or Rumble. Keep Rumble on page with no other tabs. I guess that's what I'm going to have to try and do. I guess that's the best way, man. I think hopefully the screen share will work. I'm sure the screen share will work. Maybe that way. I don't know. We'll try it. We'll see how it goes. But we were talking about this, and it was interesting, and I thought, I mean, personally, I think, climate change is happening, and it's obvious that they're capable of doing some amount of weather manipulation and some amount of, I think the contrails thing is important because, well, in my mind, it indicates that they're already doing solar radiation management, that it's not a thing that they're going to do in the future. Okay. And I don't know, hopefully Jean shows up. She left me a link. She said it was not for me. To watch, but I watched it. And it was David Keith talking with truthers about geoengineering, and I found it very frustrating. I mean, yeah, she mentioned it in the chats, and I was like, no, I don't want to watch that. And then I watched it, and I was like, I know why I didn't want to watch this. The reason I didn't want to watch it was because it was full of David Keith being doing a Dr. Fauci, saying, I am the science. I am a scientist. I am esteemed. All the scientists I know don't believe this. So whatever you're saying, poppycock. It was the most anti-science thing I've ever seen. Watching a scientist say, I don't know what you're talking about is not science. It's not scientific. There was nothing, truthers, exactly. And then when somebody brought up 9/11, they're like, "What caused the towers to fall?" And he was like, "Airplanes flying into the building." I was like, "Then you obviously know you can't actually listen to anything this guy says because he denies physics. He's a physics denier." You have to deny physics in order to believe the official story. So if you are talking to a physics denier and you're calling it science, I don't, I have nothing about that has any credibility to me. I don't care what his degrees are or what position he holds at Harvard. He is not scientific. He is anti-science, and he's there to gatekeep the truth about what's going on because clearly they've been looking into solar radiation management for some time, and he's talking about it. Well, this is 14 years ago. He's talking about it as like, well, if we decide to do it in the future, we don't know. We don't know how it's. I mean, all of that is a posturing in order to, you know, make sure that people know that they're not doing anything. We're not doing anything like that. No, no, we'd never do that. He's just a gatekeeper. He's a front man for the CIA, for the whoever, for the powers that be, for the military industrial complex. He's the front man. He's just there to be, to tell you that like, no, we would never do anything like that. And we're thinking about it. And when we do it, we'll let you know. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Captain Physics. Now I feel better. Thanks. Like, what the hell? Okay. Just accept it as truth because I have a degree and I am at Harvard and that's all. That's all we are gonna it's exhausting to listen to stuff like that. But literally that's like Dr. Fauci saying, I am the science. Don't ever question anything I have to say because I am scientific. Everything I have to say is scientific and that's it. Bullshit. Right? We already know that he's the opposite of science. He's science in the using authoritarianism or authoritative positioning in science, an authoritative position in the science world to become an oracle of what is true and what is false, which is an abuse of actual science. And so David Keith is actually an abuser of science or the scientific method. He's just using his authority to tell you what might or might not be able to you might not be able to believe is truth. And here's the main point. I don't want to really belabor this too much. The main point that I have with the explanations to why something, why the main problem with I have that I have with the explanations for why contrails are happening or not happening or chemtrails are not whatever is that there's no observation. And I think I said this yesterday, but you're leaving out the observation part. What is science? Science is a hypothesis, a theory, and then you go test the theory with what? Data and observation. You observe things in order to substantiate or, you know, or unsubstantiate your theory. You observe, whatever the phenomena it is that you're testing in order to see whether it's true or not. And the thing that Paul Beckwith or anybody else that is trying to explain, like, this is why contrails are, this is why it's happening, or this is how, I don't want to hear one more time. Contrails are formed by ice crystals, particles, accumulating in the exhaust plume of a plane. Okay, I already understand the explanation of it, but what I'm observing with my own eyes actually goes against the explanation. So don't talk to me about what it is that contrails are doing if you're actually leaving out my observation of it or anyone else's observation of it. And that is the point that was most infuriating about this talk with David Keith and the Truthers is that he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was like, the things that we're seeing in the sky. The things that we're seeing in the sky. What things? Okay, look, man. You can't have a conversation if you're gonna just be like, "I don't know what you're," "No, that doesn't exist. I'm gonna invalidate the thing that you're seeing that everybody else is seeing," right? So, not only is it, like, not just one person or a couple of people going, "We're seeing these strange things in the sky." It's everybody, like, thousands and thousands and probably millions of people all over the planet are looking up at the sky going, "That looks totally bizarre. That does not look like a cloud to me. That looks completely unnatural to me. What is going on up there?" So you're invalidating the observation that people are having, saying, like, "I'm seeing these things being created in the sky over and over and over again. They seem to have some purpose. They seem to be intentional." No, that's not happening. What you're seeing with your own eyes is not happening at all. I'm invalidating the thing you're seeing with your own. No, I'm sorry. Unscientific. You can't invalidate the observation. Why don't you start with the observation and then, attempt to explain it? You know, I think that's what they're trying to do. "Oh, you're seeing contrails in the sky? Well, contrails are formed by ice crystals." Blah, blah. Okay, no, no, no. You're not. We know what regular contrails look like. We know what regular contrails look like. These are not regular contrails. They're long lasting. They turn into clouds. They spread out. They blah 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 boopity bop. Right. So a good example is the thumbnail in my video. Really, of what they look like, and those aren't clouds, and those are very long. Those things, you see those things start in the sky. For one thing, they're very long and they're very low. These are not stratospheric clouds. These are not stratospheric contrails. They're low. They're cloud level, tropospheric cloud level contrails. So they go against, your explanation already. Two items go against your explanation. They're low level. They're not in the stratosphere. They're not like way up in the sky where the ice crystals are forming particles. They're not that. They're making clouds. They are clouds, and they stay in the sky and they spread out. And right? You following me? So don't, you can't, if you're not willing to look or to take in the information, you can't talk about science. You can't talk about it in a way that is like, well, the science, it tells me that this okay, that's not science. You're not performing science. You're invalidating the thing that people are seeing, or the actual visual thing that you have, a representation in front of you. Okay, that's not in the stratosphere. That's not. So what are you talking about? What's happening there? Do you have an explanation for that? Can we go from there? Please. Anyways, and that's, I know that people really want to believe that that it's something you can explain away, and that, it's like dogma. It's just like dogma. Like, no, those aren't happening because I say they're not happening. It's just I don't believe that they're happening, and I'm going to do everything in my power to not believe, or not have to admit, or not have to take in the idea. I'm just gonna, whatever it is you have to say about it, I'm gonna just say the opposite. That's not even a discussion. You just are like, no, I'm not gonna allow for the idea, or the actual, the possibility that things, somebody could be creating these things. I'm just not gonna allow for the idea to even enter my mind. Well, again, I don't know how to have a discussion with you about that, dear person who's not willing to take in the information, or at least take in the observation that so many other people are seeing, and go, I mean, at least could we get to the point that it's like, oh, I see those. Yeah, those are, well, those are obviously not clouds. They're obviously very straight. They're in straight lines. Many of them, multiples of them. They seem to be, really long. Could you at least get to the point of like, well, that's really weird. Uh, you know, like, The point of "I don't know" is a better point than like, "No, absolutely not. No, absolutely no. I absolutely know that that's not happening, that they're not doing," at least get to a point of like, "I don't know what the hell that is." Shoot. I don't know is a better place to be than like, "I absolutely know for sure that that's not happening." I can't seem to get this thing to get in here. I'm trying to show you this picture that's in the thing, and it will not load. And I don't know why, guys. It's probably not for whatever reason. They're just not. Can we at least I can't get it to load. Anyways, you see it in the thumbnail of my video. Clouds, and those are I took that picture like 2 days ago. So I'm, for one thing, those clouds are like coming up behind a mountain. That's not necessarily a regular flight path. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just not a place that I see, lots of commercial planes. And not only that, I can't even see the planes. Right. If the commercial planes are in their higher altitude, you wouldn't really see them. They'd be much higher than those clouds, right? So who's forming the clouds that are really low on the horizon? I'm trying to show you this picture because I think the observational part of it is the point that needs to be driven home. And I can't even, whatever. They're not going to allow me to put this in. I don't know. Oh, well, they're not going to allow me to upload this picture for whatever reason. It's annoying. Maybe it's too big. Bella says, I remember when they stopped spraying for 3 months in Charlottesville. Then on the day of the anti-war protest with Ray McGovern and Cindy Sheehan, they came back worse than I've ever seen. John Glad says, I am looking at chemtrails, guessing they started 300 miles away near Chicago. Anyways, the picture just look at the picture in my thumbnail. This is, the other odd thing that happens is whenever I post something about this or talk about this, the very next day, not a cloud, not a contrail in the sky, nothing happening, like nothing to see here. What are you talking about? I walked outside, took that picture, went like, man, that's crazy. Look at all those. Walk back inside, walk back out like an hour later, and not a contrail in the sky, not a cloud in the sky. I'm like, oh, where'd all 1,500 planes apparently. Lots of air traffic over LA. There were the conditions to form all these contrails, at some point in the day. Not much changed in an hour, and somehow they disappeared. Where did they all go? That's the other thing that, is if you really want to be scientific and have a scientific discussion about it, the lack of contrails is just as weird as the appearance of them, right? If you have the same weather conditions. I'm going to read something. Denver sent me something about right? You have the same weather conditions on, maybe 2 consecutive days, and one day there's a ton of contrails and the next day there's no contrails. Well, what happened? I know. Somebody's going to jump out and go, "Oh, the scientific answer is that they really." You got all these, also clouds forming in the opposite direction of the flight paths. The flight paths are east to west. All of a sudden, I see a bunch of cloud, boom, 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 in a line, in a row, right? Low level tropospheric cloud level clouds, contrails. They're all in a straight line. Boom, 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 boom. Going north south. That you're going opposite of the flight paths. Okay, so yeah, somebody worked really hard to, I think it was Gene. Oh well, they changed direction when they take off east to west, but then they change it. Okay, Come on, how hard do you got to work to not take in the information? I will not take in this information. I will not take. You can't go like, can I think about that for a second? I'm not trying to single out Gene. I'm trying to single out. There's plenty of people who've been on this channel who are like, no way, absolutely not, poppycock. That's ridiculous. I'm just, anyways. And to, repeat myself one more time. You can accept, they actually can modify the weather with cloud seeding. Everybody knows about cloud seeding. Yes, it's accepted, totally. We can seed the clouds, make it rain a little more. They've admitted they can manipulate weather in such a way as to not have hail fall on Volkswagens in Mexico parked. So if they can manipulate it, they're gonna do it, right? They're gonna do it. You don't know whether cloud seeding or making things, making more rain or making the hail not fall doesn't, doesn't have. Wouldn't you think that at some point that might have long-term implications for climate? Wouldn't that have long-lasting effects, rippling out, manipulating the weather, more rain, less hail, whatever it is. However it is you're willing to accept that they're manipulating the weather on some levels. But absolutely not. They're not manipulating, the formation of clouds or absolutely not. What's the difference? Why is that so hard to take on? I just don't get it. One's crazy and one's a totally accepted science. I know, and I'm not really trying to single, one person out or anybody out in particular. I'm making an argument, hopefully trying to make an argument that is, common sense based, observation based, that might like just get people who are, not believers or on the fencers or, total hogwashers to be like, okay, weird. Maybe I'll think about it. Maybe I'll consider the idea. Maybe I'll take some time and look at the sky, observe what's happening. Interestingly enough, I'm going to read this one part because I just don't have time to read the whole, the show does not go on forever and ever. So I don't have a 3-hour block of time to do this show. But Denver did send me this. Advances in Social Sciences Research Journal. This is from May 25th. Geoengineering disinformation, two opposing testimonies in the stakes for humanity. I mean, they start with the assumption that it is going on. So, I mean, there is an obvious bias on some level on this. It's okay. They made it rain at Woodstock in the Poor People's Campaign, probably. Yeah. I mean, if they can make it rain in Vietnam, they can make it rain at Woodstock, right? You're damn straight. You're damn straight. Covert military geoengineering operations have been ongoing for the better part of 3 decades. Civilian airlines based in NATO countries are part of this planetary operation. Civilian airlines based in NATO countries. Okay, so I'm gonna read a testimony from a pilot, which I actually don't even agree with, but it's interesting. He has made observations and took down, over a long period of time, tried to analyze the data from what he was observing and tried to come up with a theory of what was happening. I don't necessarily agree with his theory, but it's an interesting one, and I was going to read it because it's interesting. The other thing about this abstract is that they are uh they're hearkening back to there was a plan. This is well documented. It's a military document. You can look it up on the internet. There was a plan in the 40s or 50s back in the day to thaw the Arctic. Basically thaw the poles so that they could get at resources, because there was a lot of gas and oil under the poles, and that was an actual stated goal at one time. And this paper is kind of working on that assumption that they're still doing that or trying to do that. And that sounds wild to me, because at some point somebody would have to go, that is freaking stupid, right? Like at some point, even people in the military would have to go, that is absolutely bonkers. So if they are operating on this premise and still going forward with this idea, it's absolutely bonkers. It doesn't make any sense. So, but this paper is kind of like operating on that assumption that geoengineering is actually causing, and this is what a lot of people are saying, geoengineering is causing climate change. Climate change is real. It's being caused by geoengineering. And there's, obviously four fingers, two different camps of like, well, they're geoengineering with covertly as a military exercise, and we're also geoengineering the planet with our own actions. Guess what? Maybe both are true. Maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other. Maybe it could be and. I'm open to that. Are you open to that? Maybe they're both true. There's a video of a concert goer saying they saw planes seeding Woodstock. Wow. That is very, never heard that theory, but why not? That makes sense to me. Hold on one second. I don't know how much of this I can read. I want to read. Okay, one crime alleged by conspiracy theorists since the end of the Cold War is geoengineering, the deliberate alteration of Earth's atmosphere on a national, regional, continental, or planetary scale by cleverly mixing truth with lies, by admitting certain inconvenient facts and not speaking of others. The disinformation freelancer can keep the public confused and uncertain about what is really going on or being perpetrated. The complexity of geoengineering, which involves atmospheric chemistry and physics, meteorology, geoscience, and other technical subjects, is further compounded by the secrecy surrounding special military operations and national security generally, and thus lends itself to specialists bent on generating public confusion. This talks about Jim Lee. I've played Jim Lee before on this channel. When they banned weather warfare in 1978, they did not make any way to catch somebody doing weather warfare. In 1978, the United Nations produced a treaty document originally classified in the category of disarmament, entitled Convention on the Prohibition of Military and any other hostile use of environmental modification techniques, that was opened for signature at Geneva May 18th, 1977, and was entered into force on October 5th, 1978. However, he's saying it's a sham and a Trojan horse intended to deliberately deceive its signatories. Only the first article of NMOD refers to prohibition of military or any hostile use of environmental modification. Contrary to Lee's statement, weather warfare was not banned. Legally binding language would have specified that the signatory nations shall not engage in such acts. The language actually used undertakes not to engage. is effectively non-binding and does not legally prohibit signatories from engaging in the specified activities. Again, even if it was law, we know that the United States just flaunts, at least the United States for sure, breaks the law all the time. With impunity. So there's not. Right, and we also know that, right, the the regulatory agencies of the country that regulate our food, medicines, agriculture, they break the law all the time, or they engage in things that are um, outrightly harmful for profit. Right? They allow manufacturers, corporations, whatever conglomerates to do things that are acknowledged widely and scientifically as harmful, right? And they're like, no, they're fine. You can go ahead and do these. So they're not, they might be operating under the law, but they're not obeying any kind of laws or moral laws or natural laws, or right? They're not engaging in the in the purpose of their agency, which is to protect public safety, or protect the planet, or protect people, right? Um, Anyways, this could go on and on and on and on and on, but I just want to read this from an airline pilot. I guess at one time Jim Lee thought that contrails were just made up of all the chemicals that are already in jet fuel. There, the upshot of this is that, or the thrust of this argument is that they're using like coal fly ash. I don't, I've read, kind of skimmed through this as best I could. I don't know one way or the other. I'm not sure one way or the other. I'm not sure I even agree with this pilot's take, but I'm just going to read it as a point of interest. My flying career, this is Hagen. What's his full name? Mark Hagens. Let's go down here. My flying career stretches from 1975 until retirement as captain in 2005. All flying from 1985 until 2005 was of a commercial nature, flying large jets for a major airline in the United States. Somewhere around 1995, I began to notice a new phenomenon. He says 1995. I've heard people talk about this in other time frames. So somewhere around 1995, I began to notice a new phenomenon during that period of time. Aircraft flying domestic routes over the United States traveled via published airways. Before, it was common to use GPS. Most flights remained on these highways in the sky. Flight paths. He's talking about flight paths. They don't, they're very important for air traffic, that everybody follow the flight paths. Therefore, a lot of time spent following other jets and passing traffic traveling the opposite direction. Up until around 1995, I had never seen a contrail being left behind a jet that was longer than approximately half a mile. Right? So that actually, this I do agree with. There was a time, I remember when I was a kid, I think a lot of people will remember this, way back in the day, 70s or 80s, you didn't see contrail. You didn't see these long lasting, you didn't see these straight line, low level, cloud level, long lasting contrails. What you did see was the old school definition of contrails, right? The ice crystals forming on the jets, right? That one when the jet is way up in the sky, you see this kind of contrail that comes out behind the jet and then it disappears, right? That is the old school kind of official description of a contrail. Yeah, okay, fine. But what's the other thing that people are saying? That's a totally different phenomenon. He's describing it. One day following another jet, I noticed it was leaving a contrail behind that did not disperse. This was highly unusual. Over the next years, this phenomenon increased in a fairly linear fashion to the point where by 2000 it was a common occurrence because in 2000 there were so many continuous contrails being left behind commercial airliners. I could only deduce the possibility of some kind of additive being added to the jet fuel supply. I mean, that was kind of, he just immediately deduced that. Anyways, beyond that thought, I had no answers. What I do know for a fact is that this never occurred prior to 1995, and after that year, it became the norm. What do you guys think about this? Do you have an experience of contrails pre 1995? If you're not that old, um, because I remember that there was a time when they weren't in the sky, and then there was a time when they were in the sky like heavy, like every single freaking day in the 90s. It was in the late 90s, probably early 2000s that I started that I started noticing, like, golly, those things are up in the sky all day long. And I had discussions with people, friends, and family members all the time who we'd just be randomly standing outside and they'd be like, there they go again. I'd be like, oh, you see them too? Okay. So I'm not crazy. You see them. Everybody sees them. In 2000, there were so many continuous contrails being left behind commercial airliners, I can only deduce the possibility of some kind of additive. In 2005, I retired in the rural area in a rural area in the Pacific Northwest. Having flown my entire life, it was automatic to look up in the sky often. For the first time, I was able to spend considerable time observing the contrail issue from the ground. I began to see a pattern. About 300 miles west of my home was a major commercial airport. In the summer, on clear mornings, I could see all of the departures flying east passing overhead. In 300 miles, they are well established at their cruising altitudes. All summer long, they would leave continuous contrails, which would eventually spread and eventually form a thin overcast by afternoon. Finally, took the time to search the internet for any discussion on this matter. It was then that I discovered the assertion that this was some kind of geoengineering. Shortly thereafter, I discovered an internet site called flightradar.com where one could view the air traffic anywhere in the United States. The information provided included the aircraft cell sign, departure point, destination, aircraft type, speed, and altitude. I began to notice occasionally a commercial flight would have no contrail, while other flights before and after at the same altitude did. I began to take notes over about a 3-month period in the summer of 2014. So he began to notice that some flights had no contrail and other flights did. That's interesting, right? Uh, the first thing I was able to eliminate was altitude differences. I could see flights in the same airspace at the same altitude with some leaving chemtrails and some were not. That's important. So I began to focus on where these aircraft departed from and which airlines were involved. Having retired from one of these airlines that I saw flying overhead daily, I knew for a fact that my airline was not involved in specifically adding additives to the fuel loads. Did somebody say that they changed the formula for jet fuel at some point? Anybody? I think I remember somebody saying that they changed the. Um, I knew for a fact that my airline was not involved. I had many friends in the maintenance department and knew that many people who worked for the ground services that fueled the jets in the morning. If there were some kind of clandestine operation going on at my airline, I certainly would have known about it. I also know for a fact that there had been no special equipment added to our aircraft or for the purposes of deploying chemicals into the atmosphere. I will also note here that all aircraft that I observed had chemtrails coming from the exhaust of the jet engines and no other place. Over the next 3 months, I made the following deductions based on my observations. It appeared that all commercial jet aircraft departing any major airport in the United States was producing chemtrails. All commercial jet aircraft. None of the commercial jet aircraft that had departed smaller regional airports had chemtrails. That's interesting. Examples of these mid-sized cities would be Salt Lake City, Utah. I observed a daily flight out of there, but never a chemtrail. The other deduction I made was that whatever was causing the chemtrail must have been added at the refineries. Most major airports are supplied jet fuel via pipeline from a major refinery in the area. When you consider the amount of fuel that is consumed every day at a large metropolitan airport, it would be near impossible for semi trucks to provide that quantity of fuel. Case in point, Olympic Pipeline. He's going to go on to describe pipelines that are in the North Pacific Northwest. Military airports generally use a slightly different type of jet fuel. While military aircraft did not show up on the flight radar system for security reasons, occasionally I would see one overhead. They are easily recognized by their unique shapes. While I had very few examples, nearly every military transport flight I did see was leaving a chemtrail. International flights became another focus of my attention. There has been much discussion in the geoengineering articles regarding the fact that the chemtrails are observed in every country of the world. From my observations, I discovered that my property lies under an air route that is used by commercial airlines coming from the Far East en route to Los Angeles. This route is called the Polar Route. As per procedure, once these aircraft arrive in Canada from over the North Pole, they are funneled into a very specific route before entering the United States. So they always enter the United States at the same point and follow the exact same route to Los Angeles. Therefore, I was able to observe many flights from many different Asian and European countries on a daily basis. I began to list the airports they departed from and whether or not they were producing chemtrails. After months of analysis, I discovered that all flights departing from NATO nations were leaving chemtrails. Flights that were departing from non-NATO nations did not have chemtrails. Okay. So, it's interesting observations. Adding compounds and fly ash to fuel would quickly destroy the engines, Bella says. Yeah. So you're saying this article mimics your experience? Interesting. I don't. Joseph Wood says, while this activity can only accelerate global warming overall, it has served to hide the actual increase in global temp from many large populations. That's what I think. I agree with that statement. Yes, ARAM, one of the most important aspect of these contrail chemtrails discussions is the dismissiveness, gaslighting, and lies from government media. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that whole the thing about David Keith at Harvard, and they're testing out the geoengineering ideas. That is such a crock of baloney to me. I mean, I feel like that whole operation is just a front to hide what's already going on or what's been going on or what, they're not it's ridiculous to think that they don't know way more than they know. But they're acting like, well, we're not sure how it's, come on, it's 2024. You guys, you've studied so many other things about the atmosphere, right, altering rain. You've done experiments on, controlling hurricanes. You've done so many other experiments. The idea that you don't know more than you know about solar radiation management just strikes me. It just seems silly, and to say like, well, we don't do it because we're, you know, ethically it's wrong is also super silly, because there's no ethical questions when it comes to pretty much everything else, right? Bombing people, bombing people in tents, and bombing people with depleted uranium, and building nuclear weapons, and using all kinds of, you know, there, you know, there's just this spew of things that you could count, you could point to and go like, well, they don't seem to have any ethical constraints in, you know, pretty much everything. But on this one, they do. Oh, okay, 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 okay. I believe you. I believe you. Um, my experience though, my experience. Denver says I spent my whole young life outside. The contrails were not noticeable to me before 9/11. Yeah, I actually wonder about when it is I first started seeing them too. When I first started really super duper noticing them, it was actually in the 2000s. Um, when I really started like paying attention was probably early 2000s. Or no, actually 2010s. So maybe like 15 years ago, I really started noticing them. Um here's my disagreement with this, what this pilot is saying, and my just based on my observations, is that I don't now, based on what I've seen in the last few years, it's not jet fuel additive. Absolutely not. Because they don't, if it was jet fuel additive, they would be consistent. It would be so consistent. There would be so many more contrails in the sky. And at one time when I first started noticing and observing them, it was every day, all the time. It was, I remember one summer I started noticing them, and it was just like day after day after day after day after day. Like every single day for weeks on end, there were contrails in the sky. And that went on and on and on for several years until one day they stopped. And I noticed the fact that they stopped as much as I noticed the fact that they were there, because I had been paying attention to them. And when they stopped, I was like, oh, the flights didn't stop, right? Commercial flights didn't stop. So where did the contrails go? Like they stopped for months. Like when they stopped for months. I didn't see a contrail in the sky for 3 months. And I was like, definitely, definitely these are created, because no way are these naturally occurring contrails, because they just stopped. The flights didn't stop. The flights didn't stop coming in and out of LA. Hell no. And they disappeared for 3 months. No way. And since that time, this is when first year when Trump was elected, 2017. I remember distinctly, because I have a memory and I know how to use my memory and I know how to remember things, and put them in order of when they happened. They stopped when Trump became president in 2017, and I was like, that is weird. That's a weird coincidence that they kind of just stopped all of a sudden. And since then, I have noticed that they are very, I don't know, intentional. They show up some days and other days they don't show up. Some days it's super duper hot, extremely hot, clear sky, nothing, and no contrails. Other days it looks like it's going to be hot, and they're like, you know what, today I think we're going to throw the umbrella up. We're going to throw the shade up, like the Dodger game the other day. Oh, we're gonna throw the umbrella up in the sky, and then they do it. And I'm like, okay, this is not coming from commercial aircraft. Heck no. This is not jet fuel. Heck no. It's, in my mind, what I think it is that it only takes a couple of planes. They're military planes. They spray shit in the sky. They make a contrail. Done deal. And if you if you can do it in the middle of a bunch of jets flying around, well, then you could just make it look like regular air traffic. It's just not that, but it's just not that hard. The other thing that my observation absolutely dispels this person's observance, is that they go across the flight paths all the time. So I know where the flight paths are in LA. I see the planes coming in. You can watch the planes landing and leaving, and they take off in a certain direction. And if you've been on a plane out in and out of LA, you know exactly what the flight paths are. And these planes go all over the sky, like willy-nilly all over the place. So they're not even following a flight path. They go against the flight path. They're all over the place. They're not commercial jets. So no. In my mind, I'm like, absolutely not. It's not commercial jets. No way, no how. It's military planes. Period. Period. It's military planes. You only need it, you could just send up like 2 or 3, and they can go boom, 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 and all of a sudden you have crisscrosses of contrails. It takes what, half an hour to go boom, 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 boom. 2 planes. That's not You don't need a lot of traffic for it. You don't need a lot of material. It doesn't cost that much money. You just send up a couple planes, boom, 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 created a couple of clouds, done deal. It's not hard. It's just not that hard. Anyways, that's my theory on it. I know people have others. I can't, I'm just going from what I'm observing with my eyeballs. And over time, my observations based on a long period of time. So I have, you know, certain points of data that I'm trying to, instill in my observations. Does that mean I absolutely know what's going on? Heck no. I don't know, but that's what I think is going on. And it doesn't actually line up with anything this guy is saying, but it's interesting. His observation is interesting for sure. But um ARAM, I was talking about, there's somebody posted a interview with David Keith and some truthers, and it's from about 14 years ago, and they're talking about chemtrails, trying to talk about chemtrails and geoengineering with him, and he's completely he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, no, me and the other scientists, like, we don't agree. It's just not happening. I was like, dude. So that's your explanation, is to dismiss people's observations, and I'm like, that's not scientific. That's not science. You're literally saying, like, you're not seeing what you're seeing. Okay. Thousands of people, millions of people all over the planet are not seeing what they're seeing. You're wrong because you're imagining things. That is not scientific. And so, he did that in the first 5 minutes of the interview, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I watched about 20 minutes of it, and that was all I could take of his absolute garbage nonsense explanations for nothing. And like, it's, yeah, okay. Not just because somebody is an authority does not make them authoritative. I am sorry. That is not equal truth. And to present it as such is not it's just not acceptable, honestly. But, people are going to believe what they believe. It's the only reason, the only reason I'm talking about this is because I've observed it, and it's weird as hell to me. Like, seriously, like, if I didn't see what I was seeing, I would probably be like, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing up there. I don't care, and I don't care. I'm just saying I've seen enough to go like, whoa, holy shit. Like, I've seen enough, and I have other people in my life, not like, you know, they're just regular people. They're not like seriously, like, one person I talk about this with a lot is not a conspiracy theorist at all. Like, he pretty much would disagree with most of the things I have to say about anything, politics or whatever. But he and I have had conversations about contrails and chemtrails, and he's like, "Oh, dude, they're going ham up there. They're playing tic tac toe up there." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah," because he's observed it. He can see it. He's like, "What the fuck is that?" That's a legitimate question. And to say to somebody like, "You're not seeing what you're seeing, these things aren't happening," is gaslighting. It's gaslighting. It's total gaslighting, which is what the people in charge are good at. They hire people that are good gaslighters to gaslight. They're like, this person is a sociopath. They're pretty good at what they do. Let's get them on board. You don't have to do much. You just have to be like, I don't know. I have a degree. I'm a professor at Harvard, and I say, I don't know what you're talking about, and that's good enough for most people. Bella says, I've seen commercial jet landing with sprayers visible along the trailing edge of the wing. Okay. I don't know. It's weird. Lots of people see it. I don't think it's a weird subject to talk about. And in fact, I think it's, appropriate to talk about it. Do I know everything about what's going on with it? I don't know. um Anyways, I also like to talk about things that are on the edges of reality. But for some people, it's not that weird, right? Some people are like, "Oh, of course, dude." All right. Uh, Quickly, if you enjoy the show, if you like the show coming to you for free 99 Monday through Friday, if you enjoy the conversations, I know they can get out there. That some people don't agree. I'm trying to actually I'm having the geoengineering versus no geoengineering discussion all on my own with myself. You're wrong. No, absolutely, you're wrong. I'm debating myself on this because I see mostly just one-sided arguments on most channels, but which is like, it's all geoengineering, climate change is fake, or it's all climate change and geoengineering is fake. And so I'm going to have the debate with myself because I don't see a lot of people having like actual debates about it. And again, and climate change and geoengineering can be happening at the same time. Let me go. The last thing I wanted, this is interesting in this article. They get all the way down to the bottom to go on to say, wildlife species are suffering a precipitous global decline. Aerosolized coal fly ash. Okay, we'll just, whatever, is a significant factor in the catastrophic global decline in the populations of insects, birds, and bats. Insects can ingest and or accumulate toxic coal fly ash. But what about all the other toxins that we're spraying? Is it only, I just find it a little bit weird that they're concentrating on the coal fly ash thing. We're spewing so many toxins into the atmosphere and into the oceans and rivers and soils. To say it's all coal fly ash is a little bit weird to me because there's so many other things that we're doing to the planet. So I'm not a proponent of this idea. I'm just saying their conclusions are interesting. Life on Earth is dying. The world's oceans are superheated, stratified, and grossly polluted. Ding, 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 ding. True. The world's forests are dying and burning down. True. Ding, ding, ding. We have destroyed over 2/3 of the world's wildlife just in the last 50 years. True. Ding, ding, ding. Right? At the end of this article, they come to the conclusion that, most climate scientists have come to, which is super interesting to me. Do you not think? Let's go on. We have entered a phase of hothouse Earth with runaway global warming and increasingly deadly shortwave ultraviolet radiation penetrate. Jesus Christ. I mean, this is about as spot on as it can get. We have effectively wrecked the planet with both chemical and electromagnetic pollution. Few scientists have found the courage to sound the alarm about our dire situation. I don't know, man. There's a lot of climate scientists that are sounding the alarm about this situation, just this situation. They just don't think it's coal fly ash. They think it's as weird to say coal fly ash as it is to say, well, it's just CO2. If we just cleaned up the CO2, well, then the planet would be safe. That's you know ultra super blindered vision too. That's not what it is. It's not CO2, it's not coal fly ash. It's everything. It's all the things all together. Come on. We've effectively wrecked the planet. All right. Fewer yet realize or admit that most of the damage has been caused by deliberate manipulation of large scale natural processes that affect Earth's climate. Well, yeah. Specifically geoengineering. Well, is it only ongoing covert geoengineering operations utilizing coal fly ash aerosols pose the greatest threat? Okay, so there's kind of like possible disinformation in there. It's You kind of have to parse this out. I don't know. I read through this. It was interesting. I didn't necessarily agree with all of it. There's just interesting little like points of information in here. I thought it was interesting. Um, they pose one of the greatest threats to life on Earth, short of all-out nuclear war. Furthermore, these operations have the exact opposite effect of their purported purpose of cooling the Earth, which is what scientists have an issue with the idea of geoengineering, because they're like, well, it'll work for the short time, but maybe not the long time. I feel like the disinformation is that it has to be one or the other. This thing or that thing, or this, we can't. They come to the same conclusion that climate scientists come to, but it's all because of geoengineering. Does it really? Is it? You got to be on one side or the other of the debate. It's got to be absolute hogwash, or totally the reason that we're killing ourselves. Like it's kind of like all it does is dumb people down. It makes you stupid. It makes you think, I gotta believe in this one box. I gotta check this one box. And if I check this one box, I can't check any other boxes. You can check all the boxes, bro. Check them all. Check them all. It's weird. It's just weird. That whole like thought process is weird to me. Yeah. We eagerly await the 1,000-foot king tides and ocean swells. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, you got to be blue or red. You can't be green or I don't know, brown, or I don't know. What's this? Oh, that's interesting. I'm just looking at I can't look at all the links that I get. I try. I try. Did I just see Bill Gates? This is from 2009, by the way. Yeah, I just that's a good link, Denver. Here. I saw this in passing earlier today. Bill Gates patents a device aimed at halting hurricanes. This is from 2009. Patented. Halting, though. And you wonder, when they make vaccines that are supposed to cure diseases, but man, all the diseases are still there, and maybe they're getting worse because of the vaccines. Then you got to wonder if they're halting or something. Sure. I'm down to ponder that one. Application made public by U.S. Patent Office last week described floating devices that could reduce the strength of hurricanes by drawing warm water from the ocean surface and channeling it down to the depths through a long tube. Whoa. Second tube would reverse the process and bring deep cold water up to the surface. That's an interesting idea. Oh, yeah. So I'm gonna have to cover these other stories that I had tomorrow because I gotta go, guys. But I hope you found this video interesting at least. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. If you don't agree, I get it. I'm just I'm 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 asking. I'm just asking if one could just have an I don't know. I don't know. It might be. Could be true. I'm asking if it has to be one or the other. Could it be an and? Project Cirrus wasn't HARP or anything of that sort. It was reportedly just dry ice dropped into clouds that steered the hurricane in 1947 into Savannah. And don't forget the the just to get off on a weird tangent. Don't forget the hurricane that was coming towards New York on 9/11 that nobody was talking about, and then it just went the other way. And Judy Wood brings that up, and that always, you know, I'm like, I'm not, and I'm not. When I hear that part of the story, I'm just like, not, oh, totally, they totally. It's just a weird part of the story. It's like, oh, and that happened too. That's interesting. There's more steel than all the skyscrapers in the oceans. More than 90% of all displaced material by humans is in the oceans. Holy shnikes. Yeah, and then there's that. There's displacing, there's what we're doing to the planet by digging everything up, burning it or making things with it by burning things up and then burning things up to ship it somewhere and then burning things up to go get it and then using the thing and then burning it up again. We're just burning everything up. All right. We're doing that too, right? So that's also a form of geoengineering. Just another wrinkle of it. Am I right? All right. If you enjoy this channel and the information we brings to you and the discussions and whatnot, could always use your support and your help. There are lots of direct donation links in the description box. You can also follow and like all the channels that I'm on right now, Rockfin, YouTube, and Rumble. Those may change in the future, but for right now, like, subscribe, etc. Join the Telegram chat because there's people hanging out on the Telegram channel. A couple of people, more than a couple. It's also a browser chat too. It would be great if we can get everybody into one place. It would be awesome. So that it wasn't like confusing for people. But and I'll see you all tomorrow at the regular. Oh, you know what? Tomorrow might be a little weird. There might be an upload tomorrow. I'm not quite sure. I've got to do something in the morning, and I just don't know how long it's going to take because it just is going to be done. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'll be here for a live stream. If not, we'll do an upload. Thanks for watching, guys. Do appreciate you. And I don't even know where is my Rumble channel? Where is it? All right, y'all. Oh, let me see if I have anybody to thank before I go. Don't want to leave anybody out. Also, there's a new record of mine out on Bandcamp, sandbloom.bandcamp.com. Go check that out. Oh, got 3 coffees from Bella. Thank you, man. Glad to be able to donate to Sincere Truth Reporter and Great Guy. Thanks, bro. Appreciate that, my friend. I think that's it. All right, y'all. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow at 11. Until next time. Until next time. Somewhere in here I have things to play. Bye.